For 2 decades, Adam Schiff was the name that made all of Washington tremble. He had destroyed countless political careers with nothing more than a press conference and a few strategic leaks to the media. No one dared to confront him directly. No one dared to question his past, until today. When Schiff walked into that Senate hearing room, he thought this would be just another easy victory. FBI Director Kash Patel would be crushed before lunch and the media would celebrate him as a hero defending democracy. But Schiff made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the man sitting across from him. The man who had access to every secret Schiff had tried to bury for the past 8 years. And when those secrets were read aloud in front of cameras broadcasting to all of America, Schiff didn't just lose control, he completely broke down. Stay until the end because the conclusion of this story will make you rethink everything you ever believed. Smash that like button because you're about to witness the most epic political takedown in history. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room was packed with the electric tension of a gladiator arena. Every major network had cameras focused on the witness table where FBI Director Kash Patel sat with military precision, a thick folder marked Classified FBI Counterintelligence positioned like a loaded weapon in front of him. Adam Schiff had orchestrated this moment for weeks. Leaked stories about FBI politicization had been strategically planted in every liberal outlet. Democratic operatives had prepared devastating talking points. CNN, MSNBC, and The Washington Post had already written the headlines about Patel's destruction. This wasn't supposed to be a fair fight. This was supposed to be a public execution. Schiff adjusted his tie and flashed that practice smile that had destroyed careers for 2 decades. He'd perfected this routine. Attack with manufactured moral outrage, let the media amplify every soundbite, watch another conservative target crumble under coordinated assault. Today was going to be his masterpiece. Director Patel, Schiff, began, his voice dripping with that tone of righteous superiority that made patriots sick. Let's be honest with the American people. Under your leadership, the FBI has become Trump's personal police force. The cameras captured every theatrical gesture as Schiff built his case like a prosecutor going for the death penalty. You've weaponized federal law enforcement against Democrats while protecting Republicans. You've persecuted political opponents and ignored real crimes. Frankly, Director, you're the most dangerous FBI director in American history. Murmurs of approval rippled through the Democratic side. Liberal journalists in the press gallery were already tweeting clips. This was political theater at its finest. I'm calling for your immediate resignation, Schiff declared with dramatic finality. The American people deserve better than a political hack running the FBI. The room fell silent, waiting for the defensive, stammering the weak deflections, the political damage control they'd all seen so many times before. Instead, Kash Patel smiled. It wasn't a political smile. It wasn't nervous or calculated. It was the quiet, dangerous smile of a combat veteran who'd been underestimated by someone who had no idea what they'd just unleashed. Senator Schiff? Patel said, his voice carrying none of the panic Schiff expected. I appreciate your theatrical concerns about FBI politicization. He paused, letting the word theatrical hang in the air like an insult. Since you want to discuss weaponizing federal law enforcement and political targeting, perhaps we should examine what the FBI has discovered about your activities over the past 8 years. Schiff's confident expression flickered for just a moment. This wasn't in his script. Director, if you have something to say it, Schiff replied, trying to regain control. But I won't be intimidated by baseless threats from someone who's already proven he'll abuse his position for political purposes. Patel reached for the classified folder with the deliberate precision of someone loading a weapon. Senator, I didn't bring threats. I brought evidence, FBI evidence, 8 years of it. As he opened the folder, revealing what appeared to be hundreds of pages bearing official FBI seals and classification stamps, a chill settled over the Democratic side of the room. Phone calls were being made to criminal defense attorneys. For the first time in his political career, Adam Schiff was sitting across from someone who had access to everything. Every phone call, every text message, every secret meeting, every hidden financial transaction, it was all in FBI files. and Kash Patel was about to declassify it all. As FBI director, Patel said with calm authority, I have access to counterintelligence files that paint a very different picture of who's been weaponizing government for political purposes. The trap was set. Adam Schiff had walked right into it, and there was no way out. Before we discuss individual crimes, Senator, the American people need to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. Patel said, producing an organizational chart that made every Democrat in the room go pale. The FBI has spent 3 years mapping what we call the network. The chart displayed on the main screen was like a mafia family tree from hell. Lines connected Adam Schiff to Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and dozens of other Democratic leaders. Each connection showed specific dates, meetings, and criminal activities. This is FBI Counterintelligence Report CI 2024 Network 001, Patel announced. It documents the most comprehensive political corruption conspiracy in American history. Schiff's political instincts kicked in immediately. He knew this was existential. Director Patel, you're presenting fabricated conspiracy theories using the FBI's resources for partisan witch hunts. He declared, his voice rising with practiced indignation. This is exactly what I warned about. You're using federal law enforcement as a political weapon. The Democratic side erupted in applause. CNN's cameras captured what looked like a principled senator defending democracy against FBI overreach. This was Adam Schiff at his best, never backing down, always attacking. I demand this committee suspend these proceedings immediately. Schiff continued, pointing dramatically across the table. This is an unprecedented abuse of FBI authority that threatens the separation of powers. But Patel had prosecuted hostile witnesses who were actually dangerous, not just politicians who played tough on TV. Senator, these documents are properly declassified under my statutory authority as FBI director, he replied with devastating calm. And the evidence of criminal conspiracy is overwhelming. He began reading from surveillance reports with the methodical precision of a prosecutor presenting a murder case. November 15, 2016, encrypted meeting at Hillary Clinton's Washington residence. NSA surveillance identifies attendees as Adam Schiff, John Brennan, James Clapper, and senior Clinton campaign officials. The room fell dead silent. Topic of discussion, according to electronic surveillance, coordinating ongoing operations to delegitimize Trump presidency through intelligence community assets. March 22, 2017, secure communications between your office and Obama's post-presidency operation. FBI decryption reveals coordination of Mueller investigation leaks synchronized with media strategy. Each revelation hit the room like a physical blow. This wasn't random political opposition. It was systematic conspiracy. August 14, 2019, private dinner at Nancy Pelosi's residence. Electronic surveillance captures your voice briefing Democratic leadership on Ukraine operation designed to force impeachment proceedings. Schiff tried desperately to interrupt. These alleged surveillance operations are illegal. You're using NSA capabilities against American citizens for partisan. Actually, Senator, Patel cut him off with ice-cold precision. These intercepts were collected under valid FISA warrants targeting foreign intelligence contacts. Your communications were captured because you were coordinating with foreign operatives. The implication hit the room like a nuclear bomb. Schiff hadn't just been conspiring with Democrats, he'd been communicating with foreign intelligence services. But systematic coordination is just the beginning. Patel continued producing Treasury Department financial analysis. Your network received over $47 million from sources we've traced to Chinese intelligence, Ukrainian oligarchs, and Iranian cutout organizations. He began displaying wire transfer records on the hearing room's screens. August 15, 2020, $2.3 million from Burisma Holdings to Democracy Integrity Project controlled by former Schiff staff members. September 3, 2020, $1.8 million from Sino-Pacific Investment Group, a known Chinese intelligence front, to Media Matters. October 7, 2020, $3.2 million from accounts linked to Iranian Ministry of Intelligence to organizations amplifying your election narratives. The money trail was undeniable and devastating. Foreign governments had been financing democratic political operations. You weren't just running political opposition, Senator, Patel said, his voice rising with moral authority. You were coordinating a foreign finance conspiracy against American democracy while serving on the Intelligence Committee. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance intercepts, financial records, organizational charts, all proving that Adam Schiff was at the center of the most comprehensive political corruption network in American history. But this was typical Democrat behavior, taking foreign money while accusing Republicans of the exact crimes they were committing. The projection was breathtaking, but finally someone with access to classified evidence was exposing the truth. Schiff was visibly shaken, but Patel was just getting started. The individual crimes were about to be exposed in devastating detail. Schiff was reeling, but far from defeated. 2 decades of political survival had taught him to attack harder when cornered. Director, you're conducting an illegal witch hunt using fabricated evidence, he screamed, his voice cracking with desperation disguised as righteous anger. This is exactly what fascists do. They use state power to destroy political opponents with manufactured conspiracies. He leaned forward aggressively, trying to regain control. Every American watching this needs to understand. You're witnessing the weaponization of the FBI against congressional oversight. This is how democracy dies. Some Democrats nodded approvingly, recognizing Schiff's attempt to flip the narrative. If he could make Patel look like the aggressor, he might survive this. But Patel had been waiting 8 years to present this evidence. Let's discuss October 2020, Senator, he said with prosecutorial calm. When the Hunter Biden laptop story broke, you coordinated with 51 intelligence officials to call it Russian disinformation. You knew it was authentic. The FBI had verified it. But you lied to steal an election. The intelligence community had legitimate concerns about foreign manipulation. Schiff shot back, falling into his practiced talking points. We had to protect our democracy from Russian interference. This is FBI Digital Forensics Report DF 2026 Biden 447, Patel said, holding up an official document marked with the Bureau seal. Completed October 12, 2020. Quote, laptop contents verified as authentic through multiple digital forensic protocols. Chain of custody confirmed. No evidence of Russian manipulation or tampering. Contents indicate extensive Biden family financial corruption involving Chinese and Ukrainian entities. He looked directly at Schiff with the stare of a prosecutor presenting murder weapon evidence. That report was completed 2 days before you organized the disinformation letter, Senator. Intelligence assessments are complex. We had to consider multiple scenarios. Schiff replied, but his usual smooth delivery was cracking. Patel produced NSA communication intercepts. Here's your encrypted message to former CIA Director John Brennan on October 14, 2020. John, we need to kill this laptop story immediately. I don't care if it's authentic. We cannot allow Trump to win. Get that letter signed and released today. Use every contact we have. The hearing room erupted in shocked murmurs, direct evidence of election interference coordination. That's completely taken out of context, Schiff stammered desperately. Here's the NSA intercept of your call to CNN 3 hours later, Patel said, activating audio equipment. Schiff's voice filled the hearing room with crystal clarity. Jake, this laptop story is clearly Russian disinformation designed to interfere in our election. The intelligence community is unified in this assessment. The recording continued with Jake Tapper. Senator, how certain are you about this? Schiff's recorded voice dripping with false confidence. Absolutely certain, Jake. This has all the hallmarks of a Russian operation. We've seen this playbook before. Patel stopped the audio. You told the American people you were absolutely certain it was Russian disinformation 3 hours after texting that you didn't care if it was real. For the first time in his political career, Adam Schiff had no response. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. But election interference was just the beginning, Patel continued. FBI analysis shows your coordination directly influenced social media censorship, mainstream media coverage, and voter behavior in key swing states. He displayed impact analysis on the screens. Within 24 hours of your letter, Twitter banned the New York Post account. Facebook restricted the story's reach to less than 2% of normal distribution. 6 major news networks refused to cover the story based on your false intelligence assessment. Post-election polling conducted by the Media Research Center shows that 17% of Biden voters said they would not have voted for him if they had known about the laptop's contents. In Pennsylvania alone, that represents 84,000 votes, more than Biden's margin of victory. The scope of election manipulation was staggering. "You didn't just lie to the American people, Senator," Patel said with devastating finality. "You coordinated with foreign-funded networks and intelligence operatives to steal their right to make an informed choice in a presidential election. That's treason disguised as politics." CNN immediately cut to commercial break, their producers frantically calling emergency editorial meetings. For once, the mainstream media couldn't spin away documented evidence of Democratic election theft. This is what Democrats had been doing all along, rigging elections with intelligence community coordination while accusing Republicans of the exact crimes they were committing. But when real law enforcement gets access to classified evidence, the truth about election interference comes out. And Adam Schiff was about to learn that election theft was just one of his many crimes. Schiff was sweating now, his political armor cracking under the weight of evidence, but he still had fight left in him. "Director Patel, you're violating every norm of FBI independence," he declared, his voice shaking with what he tried to make sound like principled outrage. "This is an unprecedented abuse of federal law enforcement. You're proving every concern about your dangerous politicization." He pointed dramatically across the table. "This committee should immediately suspend your security clearance pending investigation of these obvious violations of congressional immunity and executive privilege." Some Democrats applauded desperately, recognizing Schiff's attempt to turn the tables, but their applause sounded hollow in the face of documented evidence. "Since you mentioned constitutional violations, Senator," Patel said with the calm of someone who'd prosecuted actual terrorists, "let's examine how you systematically abused the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to spy on American citizens for political purposes." Schiff's face went white. FISA abuse was his most vulnerable point, and everyone in the room knew it. "These are FISA court records declassified under my authority," Patel announced, producing documents bearing the most restricted classification markings. "They document 4 separate surveillance applications against Carter Page that you personally signed off on despite knowing the evidence was fabricated. Those applications went through proper legal channels with career professional oversight." Schiff protested, but panic was creeping into his voice. "Here's your handwritten notation on FBI briefing materials from January 23, 2017, Patel said, displaying a document with Schiff's distinctive handwriting for the cameras. The note read in Schiff's own hand, "Source credibility completely compromised by FBI analysis. Continue surveillance anyway. Political necessity overrides legal concerns. Mueller investigation depends on maintaining FISA authority." The hearing room gasped audibly. In his own handwriting, Schiff had ordered continued illegal surveillance despite FBI warnings. "That document is classified. You're committing federal crimes by," Schiff began desperately. "Senator, systematic FISA abuse is a federal crime," Patel interrupted with prosecutorial authority. "As FBI director, I have the obligation to expose constitutional violations regardless of who committed them." He continued reading from declassified files with methodical precision. "February 15, 2017, FBI legal counsel formally warns your office that continued surveillance violates Fourth Amendment protections. Your written response, proceed regardless. Mueller investigation takes priority over constitutional technicalities." March 8, 2017, FISA court expresses serious concerns about evidence quality and requests explanation. Your office pressures FBI to submit renewal application without addressing court concerns. April 12, 2017, Christopher Steele officially deemed not suitable for use by FBI counterintelligence. You order surveillance continuation based exclusively on his fabricated dossier. Each revelation was more damning than the last. Schiff had systematically overruled legal safeguards and ignored constitutional protections for pure political gain. But the human cost made the constitutional violations even more despicable. Special Agent Jennifer Thompson raised concerns about constitutional violations in your FISA operations, Patel said, producing personnel files. Within 90 days, she was transferred to a dead-end assignment in rural Montana. Her career effectively ended. Special Agent Michael Rodriguez questioned the legal basis for your surveillance orders. He was placed under internal investigation, demoted, and eventually forced out of the Bureau. Special Agent Lisa Kim documented systematic Fourth Amendment violations in your operations. Her security clearance was suspended for 2 years pending a bogus ethics investigation. The pattern was undeniable. Schiff had destroyed the careers of any FBI professional who tried to uphold their constitutional oath. But the most disgusting victim of your constitutional violations was Carter Page himself, Patel said, his voice rising with moral authority. Carter Page, a United States Naval Academy graduate who served his country honorably, had his life systematically destroyed because you decided constitutional protections didn't apply to Republicans. His consulting business was ruined when clients learned he was under federal surveillance. His reputation was shattered by coordinated media leaks from your office. His elderly mother received death threats. His children were harassed at school. All because you wanted to spy on a political campaign and needed a legal pretext to do it. The human cost was devastating and personal. This wasn't about abstract constitutional violations. It was about destroying an innocent American's life for political gain. Senator Schiff, Patel concluded with devastating finality. You weaponized the most powerful surveillance tools in America against innocent citizens while destroying the careers of law enforcement officers who tried to stop you. You did more damage to civil liberties and constitutional government than most foreign adversaries accomplish in decades. Round 3 was over. The man who claimed to defend democracy had been exposed as someone who'd systematically violated the Constitution and destroyed lives for political power. This is the real face of Democrat constitutional protection, using surveillance state powers against Republicans while destroying anyone who tries to uphold their oath. They've been projecting their crimes onto conservatives while building a police state. But when authentic law enforcement gets access to classified files, the truth about constitutional violations comes out. And Schiff's destruction was just beginning. By now, Schiff was fighting for more than his political career. He was fighting for his freedom. Sweat poured down his face as he launched his most desperate attack yet. "You want to talk about weaponizing government?" he screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Let's talk about your role in protecting the insurrectionists who attacked our capital. January 6th was the worst assault on democracy since the Civil War." He was betting everything on January 6th, the Democrats' ultimate trump card. You're sitting here attacking the committee that exposed Trump's coup attempt. Every American saw what happened that day. We conducted the most thorough investigation in congressional history to save our democracy. Some scattered applause came from the Democratic side, but even Schiff's allies could see his desperation. Patel opened the thickest section of his folder. The documents inside would destroy Schiff's last line of defense. "Senator, since you mentioned January 6th, let's examine the FBI's criminal investigation into evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice by the House Select Committee under your operational control." Schiff's confident mask cracked completely. His eyes went wide with terror. The FBI Digital Forensics Unit has recovered 17 hours of Capitol security footage that your committee ordered destroyed because it contradicted your predetermined narrative, Patel announced. "That's absolutely false. We never destroyed any evidence," Schiff protested, but his voice was shaking uncontrollably. "This is your encrypted signal message to committee staff director on September 12, 2022. Patel read from FBI Communications Recovery. "Delete any footage showing protesters helping police officers or being led into building by Capitol Police. Only preserve clips showing violence or aggressive behavior. Make sure deletions are permanent and unrecoverable."
Gay.
Had systematically destroyed inculpatory evidence. Those messages are completely fabricated, Schiff cried, but everyone could see he was lying. The FBI recovered these using advanced forensic techniques from your government-issued devices, Patel replied with devastating calm. We also have the metadata showing exactly when the destruction orders were executed. But evidence destruction was just the beginning of Schiff's January 6th crimes. This is Secret Service agent Robert Williams's original sworn testimony. Patel said, producing official statements. He testified under oath that President Trump never lunged for the steering wheel, never physically assaulted anyone, and remained calm and professional throughout January 6th. He looked directly at Schiff with prosecutorial intensity. Your committee buried this testimony and instead presented Cassidy Hutchinson's secondhand hearsay as sworn fact. We followed all proper legal procedures, Schiff began weakly. Here's the FBI recording of you personally coaching Cassidy Hutchinson before her public testimony. Patel interrupted, activating audio equipment. Schiff's voice filled the hearing room. Cassidy, remember this is about saving democracy from fascism. If you're not completely certain about specific details, it's acceptable to be dramatic in your presentation. The American people need to understand how dangerous Trump was that day. Hutchinson's voice clearly nervous. But Congressman Schiff, I wasn't actually in the vehicle. I only heard this story secondhand from someone else. Schiff's recorded response. That's perfectly fine. Just present the story as if you're confident it happened exactly as described. We'll handle any legal technicalities that arise later. The audio was devastating proof of witness coaching and perjury coordination. But perhaps the most criminal aspect of your January 6th operation, Patel continued, his voice rising with moral outrage, was your coordination with federal informants to escalate tensions and encourage illegal behavior. He produced FBI surveillance reports that made the entire room fall into stunned silence. FBI counterintelligence analysis documents at least 15 federal informants operating in the crowd on January 6th under direct coordination with your committee staff. This is insane conspiracy theory garbage, Schiff screamed, completely unhinged now. Here's your encrypted communication to FBI Assistant Director Patricia Rodriguez on January 5th, 2021. Patel read with deadly calm. Ensure your assets push crowds toward the Capitol building tomorrow. We need clear footage of protesters actually entering the building for maximum political impact and media coverage. The revelation was earth-shattering. Schiff had coordinated with federal informants to encourage the very behavior he later used to destroy his political opponents. You didn't just destroy evidence and coach witnesses, Senator, Patel said, his voice filled with the moral authority of someone seeking justice for the innocent. You helped orchestrate the incident you later used to imprison your political enemies. Hundreds of Americans are sitting in federal prison right now based on your manipulated evidence. Families destroyed, lives ruined, constitutional rights violated, elderly grandmothers imprisoned for walking through open doors. All for your political theater. The human cost was staggering and heartbreaking. Real Americans were suffering in federal prison because of Schiff's manufactured evidence and systematic fraud. The FBI is recommending federal charges for evidence tampering, witness intimidation, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, Patel announced with prosecutorial finality. Round 4 was over. The January 6th committee Democrats' greatest political weapon had been exposed as a criminal conspiracy to frame innocent Americans and destroy political opposition. This is what they've been doing all along. manufacturing evidence, destroying exculpatory proof, coaching witnesses to commit perjury, and imprisoning political opponents while claiming to defend democracy. They turned congressional oversight into a Soviet-style show trial. But when real federal law enforcement investigates the investigators, the truth about evidence destruction comes out. And Adam Schiff was about to face the ultimate revelation, one that would destroy him forever. The hearing room fell into an almost sacred silence as Patel prepared to deliver the most devastating revelation of all. This wasn't about politics anymore. This wasn't about constitutional violations or evidence tampering. This was about American heroes who died because one man valued political power more than American lives. Senator Schiff Patel began, his voice carrying the gravity of someone who'd carried fallen comrades off battlefields. Everything we've discussed today, the foreign coordination, the election interference, the constitutional violations, the evidence destruction, all of it has consequences, deadly consequences. He opened the final section of his folder, revealing casualty reports and intelligence damage assessments marked with the highest possible classification levels. FBI Counterintelligence Division has completed a comprehensive damage assessment of your 8-year operation. The results are catastrophic. Schiff tried to speak, but could only manage a terrified whisper. I never intended for anyone to get hurt. 3 CIA assets operating in Syria were captured, tortured, and executed by Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces in March 2022. Patel said, his voice cracking with emotion as he displayed photographs of the murdered Americans. They died because you shared their operational details and cover identities with Iranian intelligence contacts in exchange for political coordination against Republican targets. The faces on the screen weren't statistics. They were American patriots who'd volunteered for the most dangerous missions their country could offer. David Martinez, 34 years old, father of 2 children, Emma aged 7 and Michael aged 9. Emma still asks her mother when Daddy is coming home from his secret mission. David's wife Sarah keeps his Purple Heart on the mantle next to a folded American flag, never knowing her husband died because a politician sold his location to Iranian intelligence. The personal details made the betrayal unbearably real. Sarah Chen, 28 years old, married just 8 months before her deployment to Damascus. Her husband still receives text messages she's scheduled to send automatically, little love notes from beyond the grave. He doesn't know she died because you gave her real name to Colonel Hassan Mahmoud of Iranian intelligence. Robert Thompson, 41 years old, Special Forces veteran of 3 combat deployments who volunteered for CIA service. He was saving money to buy his elderly parents a house when Iranian forces captured him using intelligence you provided. They tortured him for 6 days before executing him. But the betrayals didn't stop there. 2 Special Forces soldiers died in a compromised operation in Somalia because your network leaked operational details to sympathetic journalists who published them. Patel continued, his voice heavy with the weight of fallen brothers. Staff Sergeant Michael Rodriguez, 29 years old. His wife was pregnant when he deployed. She delivered their son 3 months after Iranian-supplied intelligence led to his death in an ambush. Their boy will never know his father because you valued political coordination more than operational security. Sergeant First Class James Wilson, 32. He was 3 weeks from the end of his deployment, already planning his wedding to his fiancée. Instead, she received a folded flag and a Purple Heart because you shared classified military intelligence with foreign operatives. He held up their military portraits. Young Americans forever frozen in dress uniform, killed because a politician chose power over patriotism. The comprehensive damage assessment identifies 12 American deaths, directly attributable to intelligence compromises from your foreign coordination network. Patel read from official FBI reports: 47 intelligence operations blown, 23 assets compromised, 8 years of counterterrorism work destroyed. All because you were more loyal to foreign governments paying your network than to American heroes risking their lives. Schiff was sobbing now, his body shaking as the human cost of his crimes crushed down on him. Here's the NSA intercept of your encrypted communication with Iranian Colonel Hassan Mahmoud on February 15, 2022. Patel said, activating the audio that would destroy Schiff forever. Schiff's voice filled the hearing room, systematically betraying American intelligence officers. Colonel, the CIA assets in Damascus are operating under the following diplomatic covers. David Martinez is posing as a cultural attaché at the embassy. Sarah Chen is working as a translator for the consulate. Robert Thompson is operating under business cover as an import specialist. The recording continued for 3 minutes as Schiff provided detailed intelligence about American operatives to Iranian military intelligence. 3 weeks later, all three were dead. But perhaps the most disgusting aspect of your betrayal, Patel said, standing with the authority of someone who'd sworn the same oath as those murdered Americans, is that you used their deaths to attack Republicans for insufficient support for intelligence operations. You stood on the graves of Americans you got killed to score political points against your political opponents. The moral depravity was beyond comprehension. Schiff had literally profited politically from deaths he'd caused. Senator Adam Schiff, Patel announced with the finality of divine judgment, you are responsible for more American deaths than most terrorists I've prosecuted. You've betrayed your oath, your country, and the heroes who died protecting the freedom you sold to foreign enemies. As FBI director, I am immediately implementing the following actions. Criminal referrals for treason, espionage, conspiracy to provide aid and comfort to enemies, and accessory to murder are being filed with the Department of Justice. Your security clearance is permanently revoked effective immediately. Federal arrest warrants are being prepared for you and 23 co-conspirators in your foreign-funded network. Asset forfeiture proceedings will recover every dollar of the $47 million in blood money your network received from foreign intelligence services. The systematic destruction of Schiff's criminal empire was as methodical as the exposure of his crimes. At that moment, Adam Schiff, the man who'd terrorized American politics for 8 years, broke down completely. His sobs echoed through the hearing room as the weight of American deaths he'd caused crushed whatever was left of his conscience. Federal agents are waiting outside to place you under arrest, Patel said quietly. Senator Adam Schiff, you are finished. Round 5 was over. The biggest traitor in American political history had been exposed, prosecuted, and destroyed by authentic American justice. This is what happens when real patriots finally get access to classified evidence of Democrat crimes. For 8 years, Schiff thought he was untouchable because his media allies would protect him. He thought Republicans would never fight back with documented proof of his betrayals. He was wrong. When you kill American heroes for political power, justice eventually comes for you. The hearing room erupted into complete chaos as federal agents entered with military precision. The sight of law enforcement officers approaching a sitting United States senator was unprecedented in American history, and every camera in the room captured the moment that changed everything. I never meant for anyone to die, Schiff whispered through his tears, his voice barely audible over the commotion. It was just politics, just coordination. I never thought, but his pathetic pleas fell on deaf ears. Patel's response was delivered with the cold finality of justice. Senator, just politics doesn't excuse treason. American soldiers and intelligence officers are dead because of your actions. Their families deserve justice, and today they're getting it. Adam Bennett Schiff, the lead FBI agent, announced formally as handcuffs were produced. You are under arrest for treason, espionage, conspiracy against the United States, and accessory to murder of federal officers. The sight of handcuffs being placed on the former House Intelligence Committee chairman sent shockwaves through the political establishment. Democratic senators sat in stunned silence, realizing their own connections to Schiff's network might soon be exposed. Phones were buzzing with calls to criminal defense attorneys across Washington. You have the right to remain silent, the agent continued as Schiff sobbed uncontrollably. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. But the most dramatic moment came when Schiff looked up at the cameras with tears streaming down his face and said, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, before being led away in handcuffs. Within minutes, footage of Schiff's arrest was trending worldwide. Schiff trader reached 3 billion mentions in the first 8 hours, the fastest-growing hashtag in social media history. Cash hero hit 2 billion. American justice, hashtag deep state destroyed, and hashtag patriots win all dominated global trending topics. Americans who'd watched Democrats weaponize government for 8 years were celebrating in the streets. Finally, someone with real authority had stood up to the deep state and won. "This is what we've been waiting for," one viral post declared. Finally, someone with access to classified evidence stood up to these traitors and delivered real justice. But the immediate political consequences were even more dramatic. CNN immediately cut their live coverage, their producers frantically calling emergency editorial meetings. How do you spin the arrest of your star interview subject for treason? MSNBC went to technical difficulties and didn't return to live programming for 6 hours. The mainstream media that had protected Schiff for years suddenly couldn't figure out how to defend a traitor caught on video. The Democratic Party went into complete meltdown within hours. Emergency leadership meetings were called as party officials realized Schiff's network included dozens of current Democratic officials. By midnight, 18 Democratic House members had announced they wouldn't seek re-election. 4 Democratic senators called for immediate ethics reviews of their own financial dealings. Senator Chuck Schumer, visibly shaken, released a statement. "If these allegations are proven true, they represent the most serious betrayal of public trust in our nation's history." The Democratic Party cannot and will not protect anyone who has violated their oath to our Constitution. But the most telling reaction came from Barack Obama, who released a carefully worded statement distancing himself from Schiff. "While I cannot comment on ongoing federal investigations, I want to make clear that any coordination with foreign intelligence services would be completely contrary to everything I stand for and everything our party represents." The rats were abandoning the sinking ship. As Schiff was led away in handcuffs, Patel addressed the nation one final time. "Today proves that in America, no one is above the law," he said, his voice carrying the moral authority of someone who delivered justice for fallen heroes. For 8 years, this man terrorized American politics with manufactured scandals while committing real crimes against the United States. But when authentic Americans with access to classified evidence stand up to corruption, truth defeats lies every time. The evidence we've presented today will be released in full to the American people. Every document, every recording, every piece of proof of this criminal network will be declassified and made public. Because transparency is the foundation of justice, and justice is the foundation of freedom. The transformation of American politics was immediate and dramatic. Social media exploded with organic support that couldn't be manufactured or suppressed. Patriots across the country were sharing clips and celebrating the fall of the deep state's most dangerous operative. Military recruitment centers reported lines around the block as young Americans saw that honor and integrity still mattered in government. FBI field offices were flooded with applications from patriots who wanted to serve under authentic leadership. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when Gold Star mother Sarah Martinez, widow of CIA asset David Martinez, released a statement. "Today, justice was finally served for my husband and all the Americans who died because of Adam Schiff's betrayal. Director Patel gave us something we thought we'd never have: accountability for the politician who got our heroes killed." This is what happens when the deep state finally faces someone who actually has the power to expose their crimes. Democrats thought they could hide behind classification and media protection forever. They were wrong. When authentic patriots get access to the evidence, truth always wins. 2 years after Adam Schiff's spectacular destruction in the Senate hearing room, the consequences continued to reshape American politics. The man who'd once been the Democrats' most feared attack dog was serving life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. His corruption network completely dismantled his co-conspirators, facing the justice they'd escaped for decades. The trial had been swift and devastating. With FBI evidence, NSA intercepts financial records, and testimony from intelligence officers, Schiff's conviction on all charges was never in doubt. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning guilty verdicts on treason, espionage, conspiracy, and accessory to murder. Federal Judge Maria Santos had shown no mercy during sentencing. "Mr. Schiff, you betrayed every oath you swore to this nation and directly caused the deaths of American heroes for personal political gain. You will spend the rest of your life in federal prison where traitors belong." But Schiff's conviction was just the beginning. The broader network investigation had exposed corruption reaching the highest levels of the Democratic Party and permanently altered the American political landscape. 26 current and former Democratic officials were ultimately indicted, including 5 senators, 12 representatives, and dozens of staff members. The asset forfeiture proceedings recovered over $73 million in foreign payments money that was distributed to the families of Americans killed by the network's intelligence betrayals and constitutional violations. Nancy Pelosi, implicated in the financial coordination, resigned from Congress in disgrace and was later convicted of conspiracy charges. Chuck Schumer lost his leadership position and barely avoided indictment by cooperating with federal investigators. Hillary Clinton's post-election activities were exposed as systematic coordination with foreign intelligence services, leading to federal charges that would keep her in prison for the rest of her life. The Democratic Party effectively ceased to exist as a national political force. What remained was a small faction of moderate Democrats who publicly disavowed the corruption network and supported Patel's intelligence reforms. But the most significant change was cultural. Americans had witnessed authentic accountability delivered by someone with unquestionable authority and moral credibility. The contrast between Patel's military bearing and the Democrats' political theater created a new standard for American leadership that prioritized service over power. Congressional approval ratings reached historic highs as Americans regained faith that corruption could be exposed and punished. Intelligence community morale was restored through Patel's comprehensive reforms, with career professionals no longer fearing political retaliation for upholding their constitutional oath. The 2026 midterm election saw the most dramatic political realignment in American history. Voters armed with declassified evidence of Democratic corruption delivered Republican supermajorities that promised continued reform and constitutional restoration. Military recruitment surged to levels not seen since World War II, as young Americans saw that honor, integrity, and authentic service were valued in government again. FBI field offices reported record applications from patriots who wanted to serve under leadership that put America first. At Arlington National Cemetery, FBI Director Kash Patel addressed the families of Americans betrayed by Schiff's network on the second anniversary of his Senate testimony. "Your heroes didn't die in vain," he said, his voice carrying across the silent rows of white headstones. "Their sacrifice exposed the corruption that threatened our republic and restored justice to our institutions. Today, America is once again worthy of their service and sacrifice." The ceremony concluded with the dedication of a new memorial, "Americans Betrayed by Political Corruption," ensuring that the victims of the deep state would never be forgotten and that future generations would understand the price of political betrayal. In reflecting on the complete transformation of American politics, Patel captured what had been accomplished through authentic accountability. The investigation that began with exposing Adam Schiff's crimes proved that when honest Americans with access to classified evidence stand up to corruption, justice always prevails, he said. "We've restored honor to federal law enforcement, accountability to political leadership, and faith to the American people. Most importantly, we've proven that no one, no matter how powerful, no matter how protected by media allies, no matter how long they've escaped justice, is above the law when patriots have access to the truth." The families of murdered CIA assets finally had peace. Gold Star families finally had justice. Constitutional violations finally had consequences. And the American people finally had a government worthy of their sacrifice and trust. The deep state thought they were untouchable, protected by classification media allies and political connections. They believed Republicans would never fight back with real evidence and authentic authority. They were wrong. When honest Americans finally got access to classified proof of Democratic crimes, justice was delivered swiftly and completely. God bless the FBI agents who chose truth over politics. God bless the military veterans who kept their constitutional oath even when it meant risking their careers. God bless the intelligence officers who died protecting freedom and finally received the justice they deserved. And God bless everyone who still believes America is worth fighting for. The swamp wasn't just drained, it was completely destroyed by someone who had access to classified evidence and the moral courage to use it. Adam Schiff's network of corruption was obliterated and authentic American justice was restored. This is what happens when real patriots with real authority finally get the chance to fight back with real evidence. The deep state's reign of terror is over, constitutional government has been restored, and Adam Schiff will spend the rest of his life in federal prison exactly where traitors belong. Smash that like button. If justice was served, subscribe for more stories of patriots fighting back against deep state corruption. Share this everywhere before they try to memory hole what really happened. This is what accountability looks like when authentic heroes face corrupt politicians with real evidence and real authority. This is proof that in America, truth always wins when good people stand up and fight. The deep state is dead. Long live the Constitution.